So good morning. Who here has not heard of the Johns Pass Activity Center? Who is not familiar or has not heard that term? Only one. Okay, well good. Most everybody has heard of that term. This meeting is for questions and answers. We will have a presentation from city staff that I will introduce shortly, but it's purely information. No decisions will be made this morning. No votes will be taken this morning. First of all, city staff, we cannot make any votes to adopt any ordinances, any resolutions. Most of related to the activity center, quite a few of it is adopted through ordinances that are discussed up here. We have these meetings to inform, to notify. Then there are workshops. Then there are votes taken at regular commission meetings by the city commission. Just so that everybody is aware, my role as the city manager is I'm essentially like the chief executive of the city, oversee the day-to-day operations. The city commission is the legislative body, the elected officials. They adopt ordinances, resolutions. They oversee the charter officers, the city manager, city attorney, city finance director / treasurer, and the city clerk. So just so that everybody's aware what the roles are, the city of Madeira Beach, we have multiple departments that provide different services. We have a fire department, we have public works, we have a recreation department, multiple departments. We have with us today that will give a presentation about the activity center plan is our community development department. We have our community development director, Jenny Rowan, community development engineer, Marcy Forbes, and our community development long-range planner, Andrew Morris. And again, I'm Robin Gomez, the city manager. And we will do our very, very best to answer every question that you have. We have scheduled 2 hours, but if it takes 2.5 or 3 hours, I know staff will yell at me later because it went on for 3 or 4 hours, but that's okay. We will be here to answer questions. That is what this is about, to answer any and all questions, provide lots of information as to what this activity plan is. And as they're getting everything ready. This is something that started even before I started here at Madeira Beach. An activity center plan, some people, what exactly are you looking to do? Well, that's what we will provide. But I'm sure some of you may have heard of what are called a community redevelopment agency or a downtown development district, a downtown development board, mainly associated with redeveloping a geographic specific area. It can be a blighted area. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be a nice area, but you want to create certain characteristics, there's something unique about it, and you want to create a plan going forward for future redevelopment, or none at all. But it does give the opportunity for the property owners and for the business owners other options should they choose to do something in the future with their property. You will hear today about how you will hear words and terms such as land use, zoning, future land use, setbacks, all sorts of fancy planning and community development terms. Our staff will do our best to explain, to define them so that we can all understand what we are discussing, what we are talking about. I do want to mention we do have, thank you to our mayor, Jim Rostek is here, and Commissioner Eddie McGeehan right up here on the front. And again, I introduced our city staff. There's two more. Commissioner David Tagliarini came in, and I think there are several others who have participated in city either boards or other commissions. We have one former Commissioner Doug Andrews in the back, and if I missed anybody that has served, I know Mr. Jorgensen has served in the past in different boards or commissions that the city has had. So we really appreciate everybody who in essence, volunteers their time and their talents to serve your city, your community, because they really don't, well, actually, if you're on the Planning Commission or the Civil Service Commission, you are not paid. If you're on the city commission, I believe last year they made about 15 cents an hour. So really they're volunteering their time to make our city a better place to live, learn, work, and play. Are we ready to go? I will turn it over
I think we are
to
ready.
Jenny. There are little notepads in the back. There's plenty of pens if you have anything you want to write it down. If you do have a question, and we'll ask that you please raise your hand, and we will provide the microphone. This is being broadcast through the cities, through our YouTube channel and on Spectrum Channel 640, and forget what other channel we use, but so it is being broadcast. People will be able to view this meeting in the future as well. So that's why, just be patient. I'll give you the microphone. Jenny?
All right, thank you, Robin. And thank you, everybody, for attending this morning. I would also like to thank our mayor and commissioners that are here, and we were able to meet with them this week and clear up a lot of questions, and so I think that'll help. We also have a printout in the back just of the current land use and then the proposed future land use. So if you didn't pick that up or didn't see that, that's in the back there at that little table. And we will go through, we have a presentation that all three of us will be presenting, and then afterwards we have a question and answer. We'll open it up. So why Johns Pass Village Activity Center? These are the main points of why an activity center is proposed down at Johns Pass Village and the surrounding area. It is to protect the village. The village is a very unique character of our city and of the area. So the main reason is to protect what's down there. In the protection comes the compatible redevelopment. You want something compatible with the unique character of what's down in Johns Pass Village. So any new development, we want it to match what is currently on the ground. We also must be consistent with the county-wide plan, and we'll get into the relationship between the county and us locally in the next few slides. But we have to be consistent with the county-wide plan. And also, we want proactive planning instead of reactive planning. Now, in this slide, it may look very similar if any of you attended our last Saturday workshop about the consistency issues with the county and with our local comprehensive plan and zoning. So I like to imagine this as a pyramid where you have the county, Fort Pinellas at the very top. With the county, we have the county-wide plan, and within the plan, they have rules, strategies, and map. So every land in Madeira Beach is within the countywide plan. The countywide plan really has the basics of how you can use your land, what's your intensity and density. It's pretty bare bones basic. And then locally, we have two land use. We have a land use, and then we have the zoning. So we have the Madeira Beach Comprehensive Plan, and within that comprehensive plan, we have the future land use element. Very similar, what can you do with your land, how you can use your land, what's the intensity, density, it also has the ISR. And then with that, we have our future land use map. That is the maximum of what you can do with your land. And those have to be consistent with the countywide map and the countywide rules. So then underneath that, the most restrictive plan is the Madeira Beach Code of Ordinances. And within the ordinances, we have the land development regulations and the zoning map. And that's what you might be most familiar with. And up here on the front, we have the three maps. All of these maps have to be consistent and they all work together. So imagine any parcel of land, and all parcels of land have all three categories, and all three categories must be consistent. And here are the maps together. So we have the countywide plan map, we have the Madeira Beach future land use map, and then we have the zoning map. And in the zoning and land development regulations, that's where you get your setbacks, that's where you get your height, your landscape requirements, all of that nitty-gritty accessory structures, So when you pull a permit, apply for a permit, you're most likely only looking at the zoning and the land development regulations. But we do have the land use underneath that and the county-wide plan underneath that as well. All three of them are working together. So today, we're really going to focus on the countywide plan map and the Madeira Beach future land use map. Later on, we will be going over the zoning map, not today, but in the future. So after the activities center, and we'll get into this a little later on in the presentation, but after the activities center, say it is adopted, then we must go back and fix and clean up our zoning and land development regulations to reflect what's in the activities center. So we were notified and found some inconsistencies between our retail services with the county and resort, and that corresponds locally in our comprehensive plan to our commercial, general, residential office retail, and the resort facilities medium categories. So that's really up and down Gulf Boulevard. And if you're here at that last Saturday workshop meeting, we kind of talked about up and down Gulf Boulevard, the inconsistencies, and how we're able to just do a text change in the comp plan and in the zoning to clear that up. But down here in Johns Pass, we have more legally non-conforming properties that we want to capture and retain and really make a compatible land use to retain that unique character down there. So here in this slide, you can really see where we are inconsistent. It's the areas that are highlighted on the screen. So we can be more restrictive than the county, but we cannot be less restrictive. So what you see here on the left side is the countywide plan and their future land use, where, say, in the retail and services, their floor area ratio, now that's the ratio between the property with the building. It's a 0.55, and then locally, in our comprehensive plan, the floor area ratio, commercial general is 1.2, residential office retail is 1. So those numbers are higher than what the county allows for. And we cannot be less restrictive. We can be more restrictive than the county. So these are inconsistencies that we have to clean up, and that's what we're doing here, is cleaning up and being consistent with the county. So when we looked at our inconsistencies and where on the map, where in Madeira Beach we are inconsistent, we had a lot of what's already built, a lot of inconsistencies within Johns Pass. And so that's really why we're going forward with a land use change. And I'll bring it over to Andrew.
So one important component of the Johns Pass Village Activity Center plan was looking at what's actually been built down there. And we looked at the densities and intensities. So we looked at residential density, temporary lodging density, and floor area based off of property appraiser data. And as you can see, throughout it, there are structures that do exceed the either floor area or density for the categories in the countywide plan. Important to remember that if a structure is non-conforming, it's very restrictive on what you can do with it outside of just basic maintenance. And it also means that anything new coming in wouldn't look like what's been built down there already. Previous planning efforts, like the Madeira Beach Master Plan, did propose the equivalent of an activity center over Johns Pass. It was in that plan, it was called Johns Pass Neighborhood Center, and they proposed doing a land use change to a community redevelopment district. Those were the proposed boundaries that were proposed in the plan. One thing that's important to remember, like we looked at the previous one and we thought that those boundaries were way too large and it didn't make sense because it extended well into residential areas that we don't want to change the character of those areas. So what we did was we scaled back the boundaries to just be focused on the areas that have the inconsistencies and are already developed to a scale that would make sense to be in the activity center. The boundaries end at Madeira Bay and Barefoot Beach Club at 133rd Ave. As you can see, the development after that drops off pretty significantly, so it wouldn't make sense for that to be in the activity center. But as you can see, these are pretty large, like hotel and condo hotel structures, so it would make sense for them to be in the activity center. And they're in walking distance of John's Pass within that quarter-mile walk shed.
We will be doing question and answer after. Thank you.
Just to reiterate the boundaries again to show kind of how we scaled it back compared to what was in the proposed in the master plan back in 2002.
And we obviously realize that what's on 133rd is very different than what's on Village Boulevard. What's on Pelican is different than what's on Village Boulevard versus what's on Boardwalk. There's so many areas that differ in the character. So through that, we created character districts. So each of these character districts have their own feel, have their own intensity and density that reflects what's there currently and something that would be compatible design. So these character districts would be shown on the comprehensive plan. So the future of what you can do with your property, you cannot max out that. And then it would also be within the zoning categories. So each one of these, if the activity center is adopted, then these 6 categories would turn into zoning districts. And that's where you would have your height, your setbacks, landscaping, all of these requirements, all the requirements that usually you think of with planning and what you can do with your building, that's in the zoning. And so these 6 character districts would be codified in the zoning. So obviously the zoning, say on Village Boulevard, you have more of a Main Street feel where you have limited setbacks or no setbacks. It's very different than what you have, say over here in this gray bluish area. Of course, you would want setbacks here, landscape, and the height requirements would vary district by district to match what's there and to have compatible design. This slide has a lot of information. We have a printout of this in the back, and it just shows what our comprehensive plan is currently in the white box, and then what the proposed intensities and densities are. And you can see that they vary district by district. And so where you see, say on Pelican Lane in that low intensity mixed use, where you have a floor area ratio of 1.5, and you see the slash 2.0 and then the little asterisks, that 2.0 you would have to get with a development agreement. So that would have to go through the planning process, the public planning process, and that would have to be approved by the Board of Commissions. And here are those proposed numbers in a table. I know it's a lot of numbers to take in, and it's can be hard to visualize. Here are the numbers, and then once again, that development agreement process, you see with the temporary lodging units as well as the floor area ratio, that there is an allowance for a bonus, but that would have to go through the public planning process, which would mean public meetings, mailed notices, and that would also have to be approved by the board. Yeah.
Okay, so here we've kind of come through and we've looked at each of the districts and come up with the average lot size that you see in there and the acreage that equates to, so that we could kind of give you an idea of the breakdown of each one. Is that the example next?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what we did is we kind of picked one of the properties here on Village Boulevard to look at. Currently, most all of that is built out pretty much property line to property line. 2 stories. So right now with our current zoning, if something were to happen, the ability to rebuild, because our code does not address the intensity allowed, while it touches on density, it does not allow for the intensity. So what you end up with is the setbacks that you see here, so the gray is the building. So the building gets crunched into that, but even more so, they can't even build out to their setback limitations because of the floor area ratio. So you end up with a single-story, small building that would be nestled in between those. So this is kind of a good example of, in addition to protecting what's already built there, if you were to rebuild, you want to be compatible with that area. You also don't want to wait on a catastrophic loss to drive this decision. We want to be proactive, set these standards in place ahead of time. That way we are prepared. So I think this is a really good example that kind of drives that home. So you see having the .55 FAR does literally cut everything almost in half.
I'd like to back up. So on this slide where we have the proposed intensities and densities, you may look at the numbers, say in transitional district, okay, well, 50 units per acre, 60 units per acre, 75 units per acre, that may sound like a large number. But then you really look at how large the lots are, and the average lot size does not break half an acre in any of the districts. So how we calculate the density is we look at this number here, residential units per acre or temporary lodging units per acre. We take that number and then we multiply it by the acreage of the lot. And then there's the average lot size that Marcy was talking about. Many of our lots are quite small. So it's very important to keep in mind when you see these numbers and imagining the density, and then compare it with the lot sizes. So where are we in the process of the activity center? So we have in our comprehensive plan, we have the activity center category. We also have had the first reading to adopt the activity center plan and to amend the future land use map. So from there, we've gone through first reading. With everything with the Board of Commissions to be adopted, it needs 2 readings. So we're kind of on standstill there locally, but then we go to the county. And the county has to amend their map. Like we were talking about before, the county has their map, we have our land use map, and we have our zoning map. So now we are asking the county to amend their map for an activity center category. And then once they amend their map, if they amend their map, then it comes back to us locally and we can amend our proposal with any comments that they may have at the county. We've also sent this out to statewide agencies, so the Department of Economic Opportunity and Commerce, FDOT, SwiftMud, just to name a few, so that we're awaiting comments from them, and we will have to address any comments that we get from the statewide agencies. And then from there, we get the comments, we address the comments, then it goes to the Board of Commissions for the second reading, and that's when it's adopted, if it's adopted. And at that reading, they can also lower the intensities and densities. And after that process has been completed, we have it on the countywide plan, we have it on our future land use map, that's with the comprehensive plan. Now we would look to the zoning map, and then we would codify those 6 character districts and putting in the setbacks, the height, the landscaping, all of those nitty-gritty things. So that's where we are in the process. And we do have a slide after this to show the dates that it will be going towards the county. You're all obviously welcome to attend those meetings, but we do have those as well up here, so we'll leave that up. Now we'd like to open it up to questions and answers, and then as Robin was saying, Since this is recorded, we would like to get all of the questions on the microphone, just so we can have that for our records and for people watching at home.
And I failed to introduce two other Community Development Department employees, Joe in the back. He'll have a microphone. I have a microphone here, and then Lisa, who, if anybody has a business tax receipt, that's who processes the business tax receipts. But open it up to questions.
Thank you. I submitted 24 questions beginning of the week. I haven't seen one answer yet. I'm assuming they are coming. There are questions like,
Yep, we have them, and we will post them on our internet site, and we'll send that email back to you.
thank you. I'd like to see some of that. I mean, I've looked at all of this and don't understand why you included, I know why you included, supposedly, why you included the east side of Gulf Boulevard up to 133rd, when from 131st to 133rd, it's built out and it's not going to change. So that has no effect on it. The majority of the west side of Gulf Boulevard is already built out with condos and houses and hotels. So that's not going to change. So it surprised me a little. Every time I come to these meetings, all you want to talk about is the village, even though you've included land that is much larger than the village with all of this. And you've included things like 1,153 square feet of floor space. You realize that amounts to 27 acres of floor space. And we talk about how small the lots are and how you're going to have trouble rebuilding. And yet you think you can get in the village, because the others built out, you think you can get an additional 1 million square feet of floor space? You've already got 1.7 million for that area. And one of my questions was, how much floor space is being used now? Because I know the concept in the beginning was you were going to build this, you're going to do this so Johns Pass Village could rebuild. So why you had to add all the other stuff in, but let's focus on Johns Pass Village as you do. How much square footage of floor space is in there now? I know that the city in the past has ignored its own regulations, and that's how we got to this stage in the village where you can't rebuild it, but you can rebuild it, and you said that, obviously. So I'd like to know how much floor space is in there now and why you have to add 1 million square feet of floor space, 27 acres of floor space. Why you have to do that down there. And we all know why, because they want to build hotels. There's been 4 corporations formed this year and last 2 years, hotel corporations to build hotels down there. We're not talking about rebuilding Johns Pass to what it was. We're talking about wiping it out and making it something that
I'm sorry,
we're
where
not
are
used
you
to.
talking about building hotels? What specific area in the map?
The village area right there.
Oh, okay, down
All right,
here.
see
But you were talking about up here,
Yeah,
right? Okay,
I think that was added purposely.
this area.
So it wouldn't appear that 1 million square feet was such a large number.
Okay, well, we can explain, why was this area added?
Well, because he already,
Hold on, I'm
he
asking the
already
staff.
explained it. He already
Okay.
explained
Oh,
it.
okay.
All right? But for 1 million square feet of floor space, please explain to me why we need that. The other question I'd like, why we needed this in the first place. We're very happy with it, with the density you have. On slide number 14, which you have shown the density you can have. And in 2007, the county decided, because we were losing so many hotels, that they would add those exceptions so that somebody could come back in and instead of doing 60 units an acre or 40 units an acre, they get 75 units an acre. You're not required to do that. That's not required to be in here in order for you to conform with the county. You can do less than what the county is.
That's
you
correct.
can't do more.
That's correct.
So you don't need those extra things in there, those little extra bumps, so developers can build bigger hotels. But obviously, that's probably the reason. So can you answer some of those questions for me? I submitted them, but I never got any answers.
We did upload the questions on the website, and Robin will directly email you, them. Could we go back to the slide with the existing densities and intensities? No, like what's actually built. So we can go to that. So, oh, 14? Oh. That, okay.
This slide is what's proposed. Is that the slide that you wanted?
You have proposed, and it's down there, that if you get a planned development, or what you call it a development agreement, that those people can apply to add that extra density and get it up to
Yes.
75 units an acre. And if they have 3 acres, they get it up to 125 units an acre. You don't need to do that. You can stick with just what the county has now, without the little bump that the county has in there. And if you need that in writing, I've got it from the county.
So here are the county's intensities and densities versus what we currently have. And so in this slide, the county's, say, retail and services, which encompasses Village Boulevard and a lot of what we have on the east side, is at 0.55. Currently, our code allows for more intense development. We cannot do that. The county says, you have to rectify this. You have to be consistent with the county. So what we would have to do is reduce it to that 0.55. Everything, that would lead everything, or most everything, to be non-conforming. And it would also not allow for compatible design, like what Marcy was saying in
It says
our
right,
example.
it said on that one that you can go to 75 units an acre.
For this one. This is the proposed. I'm talking about what's there existing.
So the problem is the county, so if we go back to what's current, ours are higher than what the county allows. So no matter what, we have to do something, to even allow for what currently exists in our comp plan, or unless if we want to reduce it down, which would make more stuff non-conforming, then you can't do anything with your existing non-conforming structure outside basic maintenance, and that just, it wouldn't be right to the property owners down there, and then anything new there wouldn't look right down, like
It wouldn't be
If the
compatible
county-
with what's
If the
there.
county says 40, and you say, oh, get a development agreement, you can go to 75, the county allows for the increase, but you're not required to do that. This is
That's correct.
an extremely high hazard area from a climate standpoint. We're about to see that in the next couple of days. Okay. Right?
And we've
Why,
rec-
why
we've
are
rec-
we allowing for any increases in anything over what the county allows on their standard codes and ordinances?
The standard code isn't.
I mean, the county does offer the alternative temporary lodging use bonus standards, which you were talking about related.
That's, you're correct, Mr.
Correct.
You're correct that we do not have to, and based on the comments that we've received and this input of this meeting, we may not change that. It sounds like that's not a good idea to
Yeah.
do. That decision will be made later, but we're taking your input, and it sounds like we should follow the county ones. So understood. We are very clear on that one, that if that's the desire, that is what will come back before the commission over the next few months to make those changes. And if that's the desire, then that's what may happen. It doesn't have to, but it may. So I agree with what you're, I mean,
Thank you.
you're
Thank
making a good comment. The county allows up to 50 in the resort category. We are proposing, this is 45 to 75 with the bonus.
That's what we currently have on this
Sorry,
slide.
this is what we currently have.
Currently high.
We're just showing on this slide, we're inconsistent. We need to find something to be consistent with the county. And so, like we're doing up and down Gulf Boulevard, where we're inconsistent in these similar or same, the retail services and resort categories with the county, we're inconsistent. We're inconsistent throughout the entire Madeira Beach.
This-
So
this-
what we're doing north of this, we're able to just make a text change. But down here, in this area, there are more non-conforming property, legally non-conforming properties. And we also, so we've realized that, and that's why we've captured this area for the activities center. And why is it an activity center? We looked at the county's plan and we looked through all of their categories, which one would fit the character of what's down there, which one of these categories fits this whole entire area. And the activity center really allows us to be flexible. And for the locally, we have the flexibility and the uniqueness, which is what's in Johns Pass Village, to capture that. And so that's why we're going forward at the
And what-
activity
And the
center.
effort was done to not blanket it, right? It wasn't an activity center, here's what a blanket reward for all that, or what we did. We went down piece by piece and subcategorized it such that we avoided kind of, I think, what you're alluding to. So a lot of thought went into that. We still have the option to reduce the intensity, density during the second reading. Understand, city staff was given a directive quite some time ago. The master plan and redevelopment for this area came about in 2002, over 21 years ago.
It was
So
never
we need-
approved. It was never approved by this commission.
That's fine, but a study was
it was
done.
still
The ci-
created.
The study was
Still
done, the
exists.
city has it. We need to make some traction towards doing something. So we put something together, we've brought it out here. We're willing to discuss it. We have no ulterior motives. And I will say I take exception to that because you have a city staff that I've been with here full-time since May. And they're trying very hard to figure out how to get the city across this line. So we're willing to listen, and we have been. We've been meeting, we've been better understanding some of the concerns, and I do understand. So we need to figure out how to get there without being accusatory and work together. And you say, hey, listen, here's the fix I see, and you've said some stuff, but we need to sit down and do this.
I'll be more than happy to meet with you on this and with other people as well.
Excellent.
And also, I think that this is going to have a major impact on all the residents of this city, right? You've got an evacuation area situation, you've got high hazard area, the traffic is already bad, and now we're going to add all this other stuff.
Well, we're not adding anything at this point.
Well,
Nothing is
yes.
being added. There are no decisions that are
Let
being
me
made.
just make a suggestion, Mr. Gomez, please. I think when you get it finally done, I think it should go to a referendum and let the residents of this city decide
you mean voters? Voters.
The voters and the residents.
Not all
of the
residents
city.
are voters.
Yep.
But
We've heard, just to be clear, because we have heard from multiple property owners, they are not residents of Madeira Beach, so they cannot vote. So I think the majority of people who oppose this, from what I've received via emails, phone calls, are property owners. They cannot vote, just to be clear, just to be transparent, but we do take everyone's comments, everyone's opinions. That's the purpose of this. That's why we're going to have multiple public meetings to
They pay.
explain. And we'd be happy to meet with anybody individually or as a group if you would like to further explain.
No homestead, so they pay more taxes than most
Sure.
of us do.
Oh, sure, but they cannot vote here.
Well, yeah,
That's-
voting is important, and we
just-
can deal with that, okay?
But just to go back to a
they should
referendum.
have-
Yeah,
Yeah,
but-
I think it should be a referendum.
Okay, that's fine.
But to get it finally done, let's get it finally done together. Let's come up with something so that we've picked the path that gets us there and gets everybody what they want, what they need. We hear everybody's voice. We can't make everybody happy. You guys know that. But we are listening. So give us the opportunity to get this across the finish line.
And the vote should be by residents, not the commission.
And however you guys want to work that out, but let's,
could do that.
I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. There's been a lot of work done to this, and if we need to scale it back or need to point out certain things, we're open to do that. We've showed you this to discuss, and let's do that.
And then going forward, this only gets, again, the specifics are in the zoning that has not been created yet. It's
Well,
not,
that'll
it's
be
not.
No,
multiple-
we've,
Do it without the
So-
specifics.
No. So here's what I understand. When we do the future land use, this is where you get to set the max, right? So when we do the intensity density, if you guys say, nope, we're going to lower that, fine. Then when we come to zoning, it gets even more restrictive. So we're not opening the door up for just this free-for-all.
we in the city have gone through what they did on 150th and basically destroyed the entrance to our city.
Sir, that's only your opinion, though. That not everybody shares that opinion. I'm pretty sure of that.
Developers don't, and their supporters don't.
No, I think
But the point
residents
is-
don't as well.
The point is, we don't have a lot of faith in the city.
Well,
We have to
sir,
start
that's only your
somewhere.
opinion. That is
We-
only your
So
opinion.
we have, but we have to
clarify
start.
I've been in rooms lately that with 50 people that it's.
I've been in rooms
There
with
was a-
200 people. I was there last night with 500 people who love what's at the entrance to the city. It's not that everybody has their opinion, and that's how it goes. So not everybody believes exactly that. Just keep it open. Go
So
ahead.
to clarify with what's being proposed, the existing zoning down there stays in place until the board decides to change it. So any restriction that exists currently, even with the land use change, stays in place, and even we're could we go to the transitional district real fast, just to show some of the restrictions that are actually going in the land, or proposed to go? No, the actual, like, the slide with the details of allowed uses and restrictions on floor area, and, because I just want to explain the transitional district. So this district matches the current maximums with the future land use. To do that 75 units per acre, you have to do the development agreement, and that has to go through meetings, and then by right would be the 50, which is the maximum of the resort category in the county. Another restriction we're putting in to make sure is we're not allowing for any standalone commercial on the west side of Gulf Boulevard on the beach. So only 20%, like, it'd have to be like if it's like a smaller hotel, like a gift shop or a smaller restaurant, but you wouldn't be able to do anything standalone down there commercial-wise, because it's primarily a residential area with some temporary lodging uses mixed in. So that's what I mean. In the language on the beach side, it's very restrictive, more restrictive than, like, and even with because the county allows commercial, but we didn't think that was right. So that's what I mean. There are restrictions we've put in place, and it matches what the current maximums are.
Question?
Tom Edwards, I'm a longtime resident here. At one of the meetings, Denny, one of the commissioners asked if we didn't do the activity center, would we be able to build back? And your answer was, I believe, well, it would be difficult. But it sounded like there could be some other options, and I didn't know if you want to discuss that. The other thing is Charles Gaither report, where he talks about the density. It says here, the question was, can Johns Pass be rebuilt to the existing character uses? And he goes on to say, he's a well-known planner, this can be accomplished without a massive increase in development potential, which overwhelms the existing character. The city could adopt a policy in the comprehensive plan to allow post-disaster redevelopment up to the pre-existing level of development. Now, I talked to a lot of the tourists that come into the area here, longtime resident. The people like the character of the village. Your tallest buildings down there are only 2 stories. You have a couple 3 stories. You have some houses next to 129th that are 3 stories. But that's the character. It has that intimate feel. So could you address that? The other thing is there a way of also of not allowing planned development in the Johns Pass Village area? Can you exempt that specifically because planned development goes ahead and allows greater heights, and I know we're only talking about intensity right now, but it allows for greater heights, changes in setbacks and that type of thing.
It's still within the future line of sight. Do you want me to start it off? Yeah. Okay, so with regards to the non-conforming, I kind of went down the rabbit hole trying to figure out the intent behind what would be allowed. The problem is it doesn't address intensity as related to commercial area. So that's why you saw the exhibit where it brings it down to a single story, smaller square footage there. If we did it such that we were only reacting to a disaster, that limits people who own their property from rehabilitating it, making it more resilient, doing some upgrades. And I'm not talking about minor upgrades, obviously they can do maintenance and repair, but it limits us and again puts us in a reactive state where we're only reacting to a disaster. And what if the disaster only affects a few buildings and not the rest of it? To your point, we want to protect the character, and that's why we've given it, the categories that we have. So we've thought about that, and we did try to figure out, obviously, like anything else, there's various avenues to get somewhere. This one seemed like a great way to kind of clean up, make a lot of things more cohesive. And again, if we wanted to not think about the things you're talking about, it would have just been big blue, but it's not. It's all the other 6 subcategories that prevent this 27-acre thing from happening. So we have done that, and the future land use does limit even a PD, and I understand the limitations that you're asking for, and I'll let Jenny talk a little bit about that. But the future land use still puts that restriction on that because it's not a land use change of plan development. A plan development still has to live within the future land use restraints. That is what can be discussed in the second reading. If you want to lower intensity density, even if you, and then our zoning is more restrictive. That's why people go for a PD, right? We have our zoning, which is more restrictive than the future land use. The future land use says, hey, if you guys want to grow up, you can grow into this, but this is as much as you can get. So that's why they go for the PD. We'd really like to create a scenario where we create intensities and densities that give people a minimal or a by right build out, and we really don't want planned development. I mean, we'd like to be able to, but our future land use regulations still limit what the PD can do and address. I'll let you speak a little bit more to that. So, and if I misspoke, I'm sorry.
And I think
It's
in the
engineer.
zoning, we would have the height, the setbacks within each of those character districts that would really match what is currently there. Because why we have this activity center, we want to protect the character of this area. And so that's the underlining reason behind this. We want to protect, we want to have compatible redevelopment, compatible new development. We don't want something like what you see on the slide. So how do we do that? We have to go into the comprehensive plan, the future land use, and then we will also have to go into the zoning and make amendments to that as well. So it's kind of a two-part system, but we do not want incompatible design down there. We love the character of Johns Pass Village. We want to protect it. We understand that is very unique. That's what makes Madeira Beach very special, is the village and the area around it, and we want to have compatible development. That's what is really driving this activity center.
But can planned development be excluded from that area? You didn't answer the question on that.
I don't think, I think legally we were still
Yeah.
trying to better understand that because it's come up. So we don't, I don't know the legal answer to that yet, but it's not off the
It is
table.
something that we
And
have
then
talked
the
about is
question, if
limiting.
you're going to change the figures that you've already proposed that the commission has approved, would it have to go back to a first reading again and then a second reading, or can they change it on the second reading?
No, they can change it on the second reading.
It would be more restrictive, so,
We can only decrease it.
yeah, so it'd be
We
more
were
restrictive.
talked to the county, and they told us that we could decrease it on the second reading.
Have you looked at Mr. Gaither's report or talked to him at all to see if we can go ahead and make changes to the plan that would be offer another option, or maybe satisfy the citizens a little bit more as to what could be done?
So at first reading, we did talk a bit about the report and kind of, it was based on the assumption of if you had a blank 27 acres and did a full build out. And as we know, the area is mostly built out. So there's only so many vacant lots or underutilized lots that could potentially be redeveloped. The thing with the way we've written it is we want to make sure the land development regulations are in place to support the land use. So we don't want someone coming in and trying to rezone and propose something that doesn't look like what's down there already. I guess we would need to talk with, or to see if because we didn't write anything related to PD rezonings in the special area plan.
Yeah, we will review as to
We'll have
whether
to
we
review
can
that.
exclude that category. That's a very good point. We
Yeah.
don't know right now. I think it's more of a legal question. Can you exclude a zoning category from a geographic area? That's a
Yeah.
very good question. We don't know the
And-
answer
and-
right
We-
now.
And we
then-
did discuss it, and we knew we needed to vet it,
Yeah.
but didn't you reach out to the author of the report he's
I
referring
did.
to? We
I
did.
unfortunately did not hear back from him, but I did call him up around that time. The height limits, though, would be in the LDRs, which would be a different ordinance, and we get, the residents do have concerns about height. We'd like to try to make everything down there a conforming height, but obviously in the village, the height limits would probably be lower than some of the condo buildings and stuff on the beach side. But we don't want anything taller than what currently exists within that 27 acres.
I have one final question so I can give other people. If we had a catastrophic event and the buildings were wiped out, I think we had talked about that they're going to have to be built up, so you wouldn't be able to build the way the character is right now, where they're at ground level, they're going to have to be higher? Is that
Commercial
correct?
can flood proof. So commercial's allowed to, or, I'm sorry, I think we're supposed to call it dry proofing, but yeah, so they could.
Could be built at their existing floor level.
Related to the FEMA question you're asking, yes, we could allow for commercial to be built at grade, provided it's flood proof, yeah.
I mean, it probably would still be slightly taller because we do require 4 feet of freeboard. And I don't know what the base flood elevation
Yeah,
is down there, so
they
it
would-
would be based off a couple different factors.
But you would still have at-grade commercial.
You can flood-proof commercial.
Yes.
So you
would flood-proof up to the 4-foot of freeboard and then go above everything to that point would need to be flood-proofed, and then you're good to go. But you still are at grade, but there would be, you'd be given a height to which you would have to flood-proof, and then, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, yeah.
We have a question over here.
I have a couple of comments. Number one, we had the disaster over at the alligator attraction, and fortunately, Deputy Johnson was there, and at 3 o'clock in the morning, walking foot patrol, and he called the fire department, and they were there immediately, and fortunately, many of the animals were saved. More importantly, the building was saved. That fire is so hot and going so fast, it would have took that entire stretch of buildings all the way down to the corner, and they couldn't rebuild. They're at 0.55, like you said, Marcy. They couldn't rebuild what's there. Setbacks. It would have been a total disaster. This is so important to get this approved to save the village, save the entire village. It's not just take Jimmy's property, Delosas. He couldn't rebuild that building. Impossible. Walt's Fish Shack. Couldn't rebuild it. I respect Joe, but Joe manages the most dense, intense property in Madeira Beach, the Madeira Bay Resort. Joe doesn't want any development because he doesn't want any competition. And it's a crying shame that they get out and spread lies and to the community. It's disgusting. Came to the meeting, listened to a lot of belly aching. This is a great town. Let's all get together and do the right thing and save the village. That's what this is all about. And that's my comment. It's not really a question, other than tell you you guys are doing a great job in a very difficult process.
Chuck Dillon. Couple of things, just to reiterate, I do believe your process, the second reading goes before the planning committee. They do various exceptions, rejections. Then it goes on to the board of commissioners.
It already went to planning commission like previously, so when it comes back, it would be going to second reading at the board of commissioners.
Okay, well, I had understood that it was the first one and it comes back to us again before we pass it on, because there were many questions that we were given that could potentially change.
No, this would just go second reading to the Board of Commissions. But then we will also touch on the zoning, and that will be multiple public workshops, and then also Planning Commission and BOC. And there'll be multiple meetings with Planning Commission as well, with the zoning.
Okay, then also, in terms of the fire that we got down there, it was very interesting. The other day, our president said that Lahaina would be rebuilt within the idea of what was there, and kind of FEMA aside. So with that being done by the president, I agree with, what's going to happen with this .55. I mean, and to keep the character of our village. And, nobody thought that Lahaina, the whole city, is devastated. So as quickly as that went, Johns Pass Village could see the same thing. So I guess, so the question is, is that going to be something that is going to be coming up as well? And then I think you did address that all of that could be put back, say the whole strip along the main street. If a fire blew through there, burned all of those places, as of now, because it's .55, they cannot be rebuilt.
Correct.
Well-
They would be built at basically 55% of the footprint and need to be flood-proofed, single story.
So it can be rebuilt, but to those restrictions that Marcy just stated. So it would look very different. Narrow building, built up a little bit, had to be flood-proofed or elevated.
So then what you're proposing, as I'm looking at the numbers then, it can't happen because of what the numbers are that the county has. They're low as well.
Currently, and that's why we're looking at a land use change.
Okay.
Is to find something within the county's categories that really matches what's down there.
So this is ultimately what you are trying to get approved, not big development, just be able to save what's there.
And to have compatible redevelopment.
To the county.
Yes.
Yeah, this is not approving any developments, any redevelopment, nothing at this point. That is a lengthy process. And even the planned development, it's been mentioned a few times, that this city has a zoning category called a planned development that pretty much allows for significant flexibility to put a structure. And it has been used a few times. The town center, which has the Cambria and the 2 condos built, Barefoot Beach House, was that a planned development?
Yes.
Madeira Bay across the street,
No.
that was not a planned development. The Schooner, which is under litigation. Holiday Isles, which is the vacant parcel as you come onto the island across the Stewart Causeway to the left. It is a vacant. That has not been redeveloped. That is a planned development. To give you my perspective as the city manager, the planned development is somewhat vague. And it is the source, the contention in this city between those that would like redevelopment and those that not so much, I'm going to say. We do not want as much redevelopment as was stated. We're already very crowded. Are we overcrowded? That's a matter of opinion. Do we have too many visitors? Some residents say yes, some say no. That is a matter of opinion. Are our streets congested? Yes, certain times of the year. Did anybody try to drive Gulf Boulevard back on January? I should have memorized the dates. During the Seafood Festival. Pretty much you stay away from Gulf Boulevard in and around Johns Pass Village because there are, 30 to 40,000 people visiting Johns Pass Village and Boardwalk. Is it a good idea to have 30 to 40,000 people visiting Johns Pass Village and Boardwalk on a given day? I don't know, but one side of me says, yes, that's the significant economy of our city. Some say, no, it's too many people. I don't know. That's the balance that we deal with every day. Residents are our priority, as I've said many, many times, despite what some may say. But we do have several hundred businesses, and our economy is a tourism economy, whether we like it or not. I have said, and I will say it publicly, we can make a request to lower the number, to lower the amount or the frequency of marketing and advertising so that we eventually, possibly, have fewer people visiting Madeira Beach. I do not believe that is what the majority would like, but just giving my perspective as the city manager, we want responsible redevelopment of our city. We don't want to make it worse than it already is. That's why we're having these forums. We will have more. This is a lengthy process. So even in January, residents were like, well, wait a minute. This is brand new. I've never heard of this. Because the last meeting prior to that was many, many, many months prior. So it needs to be a shorter time period, but sometimes it doesn't quite work out that way. So just to give you the planned development is a very interesting option that this city created, and it has led to what you may see. Honestly, I've heard from hundreds of residents who do like the entrance to the city, well, except the vacant lot, but the development that is on there. But I've heard from residents who don't like it. That's the reality. Any other questions, comment? I'm sorry, Mr. Spaeth.
Thank you. I own property at the beginning of 134th and Gulf Boulevard. What effect will this redevelopment have on people that are, let's say, north of 133rd, where you're cutting it off? Is there any changes going to be to their property?
I mean, there's no land use change proposed north of there. I mean, the 27, if we can go back. I mean, the only areas that the land use change would be what's shown on the map. And the transitional district matches what the current maximums are. And so, but anything, inconsistencies outside of that would be dealt with text changes to match what the county allows. But as shown with what currently exists there, it just was, we need to do a land use change to fix it. Because at the end of the day, the retail and services category, if you look on the countywide plan map, on their GIS map, it's a category for gas stations, big box stores, fast food restaurants, and garden apartments. And that's definitely not anything down in Johns Pass or the surrounding areas is like that. The resort category is mostly for condo buildings and hotels, like other, but it allows for commercial that we want to be more restrictive, especially on the beach side, because we're sensitive to the residential areas on that side. So, I mean, the existing categories just don't really work well, and we wouldn't even be able to do land development regulations to attempt to protect what's there and make sure redevelopment looks like what's there without doing some form of land use change like what we're proposing.
Good morning. I love John's Pass. We all love John's Pass. This is I mean, I can say about John's Pass.
Use the
I'm the only one probably here that been there for many years, except Spade right there. He started the food festival, by the way. I help him behind. We needed to change the zoning, not change the zoning. We needed to get the zoning all together there. We got too many zoning from one end to the other end. If we're going to keep John's Pass unique and beautiful, and they help the whole city now. The whole city benefits John's Pass. We made John's Pass many years ago with the Chamber of Commerce and the Seafood Festival. And that's no lie, guys. The boardwalk was the number one thing that could happen on John's Pass. I pay part of it. A lot of people, they don't know that we pay part of it. The first time and when we rebuilt it, they redid the boards. How many people they know that we pay for the boardwalk? There we go. Few. How many people do they know we pay for the village? For the village board realty? All the people that we were in John's Pass district, commercial only. We pay. We pay for the whole property there, all the parking. It's no lie. It's a true story, guys. The money from the parking garage, parking place there, and the building supposed to do all the beautification for John's Pass. But they get the money and give to the general city. The whole city benefits now. It's good. Thank you. No problem. But let's think about John's Pass. I still own property there. We love John's Pass. I hope to stay there till I die. Okay? But if we do something, the city try to beautify and make it nice for everybody. Let's try to make a unique plan that everybody likes, like myself. When I stand up, I applaud you that you did a great job, even today. So let's hope that we put a nice plan together so everybody benefits Madeira Beach. Not just John's Pass. Let me put it this way, not John's Pass only. Because John's Pass brings a lot of money for the whole city, Madeira Beach. Everybody benefits Madeira Beach. And no lie. They built the city hall on money from John's Pass, from the parking. And we got to thank you for making this beautiful. I don't want to make it longer. I want to thank you, the people working so hard, the city manager and the rest of the people. And let's get something nice that we all can be happy. All right? Jimmy.
Thank you.
God, that was great on this, and it's true. Jeff Beggins, for those that don't know, I live on Boca Ciega Drive, right around the corner from John's Pass. My wife and my kids are here today, and what's interesting about this is about the whole city, not just about John's Pass, and it's changing, right? The town is changing. You look at the census, right? You've got as equal number of younger families now than you do older families, right? There's not one person in here that was from the Madeira tribe of Indians. Nobody here is a Madeiran, all right? Every one of us came here from somewhere else, and every one of us has an opinion. I think things look good. You don't think things look good. It's America. We're allowed to have our opinions. But just because you want to be louder about yours or hire an attorney to sue, whatever, right? It's stupid. We have so much division for no reason. Everybody's here for a reason because we love the city, right? And one of the things I don't think was brought up yet is what I love about the special area plan is the traffic corridor, right? I got little ones. There's a lot of little kids. You guys have grandkids that come visit. And this is not a very safe, walkable city. It's just not. Sidewalks are crappy. It's not safe. It's scary. I wouldn't let them go ride their bikes by themselves around there. This is not right. So part of this is traffic corridor to make more walkability, to make it safer, and do it. And people will build things. People will build things I don't like. And I'll be gone one day, and people will be doing whatever they do down the road. But to limit PDs because a couple people are pissed off about them, don't want to see things going, is stupid. Because when you're gone and I'm gone, in 2 generations from now, if they want to do something and their 5 people want to vote on something, let them do it, right? It's the will of that people at that time, right? So I don't think we have the rights to be saying, I don't like that, so no way, I'm going to just sue over it. It's not right. Like you said, let's just figure out a way to unify. It's not that far apart. I mean, last night, I saw many of you there. There were hundreds of people by the bell tower listening to great music, having a great night from all over the area, right? And that's going to happen. And if a couple hotels come up, as long as they're pretty and the people like them, great. Some people won't like them. Some people will like them, but that's what brought us all here too, right? So let's remember that none of us are native, right? We're just here to live in this beautiful town and for the future and all the other people too. That's just what I want to say. I think you guys are doing a great job.
The other back. Maybe give the projects. That one works a little better.
I was just going to give you a little history on Johns Pass. There used to be a market down there, Johns Pass Village Market. That used to be in Johns Pass. It was a very active market, and across from 132nd Avenue and Gulf Boulevard, there was a small market there with a butcher shop and a sandwich shop there. So they were compatible with the area, and that's why you had those designations there.
Cool. There was a hardware store.
There was a hardware store,
Hardware
and they're
store
doing
as
it very
well.
well.
What type of feedback are you getting from the business owners themselves, the Johns Pass business owners?
I've only heard the support to move forward. Again, no decisions are being made. There's nothing related currently to redeveloping one specific property or parcel or one specific business wanting to do something. There have been many comments that not from the actual businesses or business owners or property owners, but from others speculating and specifically commenting, well, there's a hotel, because there was a hotel plan back in 2018 where the vacant lots that are being used as parking.
Are there any business owners here right now?
There are several, actually.
I would love to hear from some of you.
If you want to give. Right here.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Maller, and our family owns a good portion of the boardwalk area, the park garage, Hooters, Bubba Gumps, Friendly Fisherman, and many other shops along the boardwalk and under the garage. I mean, I could stand here all day and tell you what a great town this is and what a great job the city does here and how great it is to work with them. But I would like to just, be really clear, because I know you guys, the specific reason for today is based on what the county has and what we have is two different things. God forbid, if a hurricane comes through and wipes out our boardwalk and any buildings close to it, can we rebuild to what we have now? No.
Not exactly.
That's
No.
a serious thing.
Yeah. You
Okay?
can build, but it would look
That's
like
a major, major issue. And that's what these people here today are trying to correct and get on the same page with the county to make it to where we can preserve. Future development is future development. It has its purpose, and that's up to them to take on a case-by-case basis. But right now, the issue at hand is, if something was to happen, like that catastrophe that happened at the Alligator Center, can they rebuild right now to what they had and protect everything that goes with it?
because the damage does not warrant tearing down the building, then they can rebuild what they have. They can make the repairs.
Very good.
Had the building needed to be demolished, as was stated earlier, then it would have to meet the code that was shown on the slide with the floor area ratio at the 0.55. So you could rebuild, but it would have to meet the current city codes. It would have to have some sort of greenery or impervious surface area that right now virtually none of the properties in the village have. And I don't mean to go on, but how did the Johns Pass Village and Boardwalk get built to be non-conforming with city codes? I don't know the answer directly. Obviously, some of you or many of you were here when the village and the boardwalk were rebuilt to what it currently is. But back then, the city did not have its own, from our understanding, its own community development department or building department. Either the county provided that, but whatever happened, I'm going to say that the city eventually, because the city is its own entity allowed that to happen, but it didn't comply with the codes. That is another source of why some of our residents are upset. The city allowed it to happen, whether that was in 1999 or 2000. When was,
Well, then we had the zoning code in 1983, I believe.
that's when the
So-
code was adopted, but the garage and Mr. Muller's property was built, I think, in 99 or 2000, or do you?
2001,
No, wait.
oh, 08, 06.
But I mean, just as an example, right. But
If the
yeah, on Village
boardwalk was
Boulevard.
if the boardwalk was wiped out by a hurricane, well, the village and the boardwalk, can we rebuild it? In
Not the way it
in
looks now.
Not the way it looks
Not the
now,
way
in
it
the
looks
same footprint, correct?
Yes.
That's not good. So they have to go to the county and make a deal. And that's what they're trying to do. And you always got to ask for a little bit more to get what you want. And that's what the city is doing right now. They're negotiating come up with a plan that they can get the county on board so we can protect what we have. Future development's a whole nother issue. So that's basically my understanding of the situation. And I think you guys are doing a fabulous job. And by the way, when are we going to get dredging done? You got the money. When are we going to get it done?
Mr. Dillon mentioned about the president being at Lahaina in Hawaii. I think we would need the president or somebody to talk to the U.S. Army Corps to move it along.
Hi, I'm Sue from Walt's Fish Shack, and I just want to let you know we've been in business about 20 years, and we have a little baby shack that is 99 years old, okay? And we were affected because we have 2 apartments behind it. We flooded, the whole city of Madeira flooded. We were only able to redo one of the apartments that flooded on ground. So that's reality. We have no tenant because it flooded. So reality is we're sitting there and some of you own property that you can't rebuild it. So the fairness is we're a little baby place. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to be any bigger. We just want to rebuild what we have. And we can't do it right now unless there's a change. And if you had our property, you guys would be crying every day in our situation. So this is what has to happen.
Thank you, and thank you, staff, for the work that you're doing here. My name is Tony, and one of the things as we talk about, what happened in Maui with the fire blazing through, or what just happened at the place in the village there, or we talk about hurricanes that have come through and wiped out, those are all very catastrophic events, but it doesn't take a big catastrophe to affect what's there now. I have friends in Naples where, they just suffered that hurricane last year, and FEMA has come in, and because they had, like you just mentioned, a little bit of flooding or a little bit of damage, they've lowered the value of their buildings to now where even though they might have had a building that was insured for $1 million, because now it's been damaged a little, FEMA's declared it, and the values have gone down to say, well, now it's only worth $500,000. And now the 50% rule kicks in. Your insurance, even though it would have paid to put it back to the $1 million, you're not allowed to do more than $250,000. And so that's something to consider, even though you might have like a little fish shack or something, or any of the people here that own anything in the past. It doesn't take a big catastrophe to affect this. You get enough damage to where it's more than 50% of the value of your structure, they won't let you rebuild. I know people in Naples now that are actually having to tear down buildings they're not allowed to rebuild that actually could have been fixed and saved, but because of the 50% rule, they can't do it. So it does make very good sense for this to make it all conforming, not even in light of future development, but just to preserve and protect what's here. So that's just what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Good morning. First of all, city staff, it's Saturday morning. Thank you very much for coming to do this. It really means a lot. My name is Marcus Winters. I'm the owner of Caddy's, Scully's, and Mad Beach Cantina. And it's frightening when you put up a picture of what could be built in the city. Exactly. If you look at that building, when you look at a .55 FAR, that's a floor area ratio. But if you look at, I have probably 360 employees in Madeira Beach. That's 0.55, that's 55% of those people will have a job. 45% won't because I don't have the property to have my business, to have a kitchen, to have tables, to have parking. This is a scary, scary thought. About 6 months ago, I drove down to Fort Myers Beach. We don't ever want to see what's down there. I cried when I came out of it. It's not just rebuilding windows. It was devastated. We'd have to knock down the whole pass and rebuild it. And if that's what you're going to rebuild, that's 0.55 of the village. That's 0.55 of the tourists that can go there. And that's 0.55 of the jobs and the income that this city relies on. So unfortunately, I don't live in Madeira Beach. I don't have a vote in Madeira Beach. But I am very active in the community. I understand a lot of residents. I do understand the concerns. That's why we have such a talented building department and a city that there's restricted development. I keep hearing Clearwater Beach, Clearwater Beach, Clearwater Beach. I read the codes. You can't build anything over 7 stories. You might build 5 if they allow you 2 parking, but you can't build anything bigger in Madeira Beach, and you never will be able to build anything bigger in Madeira Beach. So let's stop talking about what Clearwater Beach is. Let's talk about what Madeira Beach is, what people love about Madeira Beach. We're a beach community. People love to come to the beach. But we have these wonderful, talented people up here who control the development. Believe me, I'm a businessman and I'll try my best. I tried to get whatever I could get in caddies on Madeira Beach, the new caddies. I was given my footprint, I was given my size, and they were like, that's what you're building and you can't do anything else. That's what regulations are for. And we need to let these people do their jobs. We're talking about a hotel development. We're talking about a plan development. Plan development is a negotiation with the city on a piece of property. It gets the residents get their opinions, residents get their thoughts, residents vote for the commissioners to get into the commission to make a vote on the issues. So a lot of the meeting, these people are giving up time on a Saturday morning. They don't want to be listening to me, but they do a job. I've lost my train of thought. But for a plan, we're restricting this whole Johns Pass village. We're destroying Johns Pass village because a lot of people are tied up in the 1,800 bedrooms that the attorney in Treasure Island wrote on next door and said, this is the big hotel that's going to be built in the middle of it. There's no plans in there. There's no projects gone in there. There's a responsible building department is going to tell the people on that property what they can build and what they can't build. And then when the city tells them that, if it goes to a plan development, the residents can talk to their commissioners, the residents can go to the public meetings, and I'm sure the people that are going to build that are going to listen to everybody and going to come up with a plan that's going to benefit everybody. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Ben Mala Jr. I'm with Johns Pass Plaza. So I have a question for you more of how many different owners are in this proposed activity center of Johns Pass?
There's at least 514 individual parcel IDs, but some of those properties are owned by the same property owner.
But it would be good to say there's over 300, 400 different owners out there?
Yes.
So my thing is I hear a lot of people scared of future development because of 27 acres, right? This future 27 acres. This is what this plan was written about, this 27 acres. Well, There's no way to get a hold of 27 acres. Not one person can get a hold of 27 acres down there. There's no reason to fear future development because nobody can get a hold of every property over there. It's only a per acre. There's, like staff said, there's very small lots over there. So 70 units on an acre seems like a lot, but if you take 0.1 of an acre, that's 5 units, 6 units, 10 units. It's very small. So nobody could get a hold of the whole Johns Pass Village and turn it into this major thoroughfare that everybody fears. It's just physically impossible. I mean, it would take years and years and centuries of eating up properties. And I develop a little bit over in Tampa and things like that, and it's just not possible. It's very hard. It would be very hard. And that's all I wanted to say.
And look at this way, there's places like Gulfport, Dunedin, like St. Pete Beach, Treasure Island, they do have activity centers, and they do have it more restrictive than what the county allows. So you can scale down stuff, because Gulfport has pretty strict height limits in their activity center. So I mean, that's what I mean, like, that. What's great with the activity center category is it gives you a lot of flexibility to like be able to kind of scale development in the way the community wants, compared to other categories like retail and services, which is more suburban commercial, and the resort one's more of like kind of like condo buildings. And so that's what I mean. The activity center, when you start looking at a map and start seeing the places that have that future land use, it's interesting kind of the differences between them. And you have, like, once again, like places like Gulfport and Treasure Island, St. Pete Beach that have them. So it's not like there aren't places like along the coast or beach that like other communities have it too.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie. I own Woody's Water Sports down in Johns Pass. My husband and I relocated here about 5 years ago and bought the business from my father. My father's name is Woody. He's owned it since 2007. We are very real as a family. We are not interested in the big business that maybe some of you are concerned with. My father owns the building. We have 3 children that attend Pinellas County schools. We are just the American dream when it comes to generational people being able to have their own business. My kids work for us. It is 3 generations worth of a business. The 2 owners above us, if you haven't ever gone jet skiing with us, I'm certain you've eaten at the Boardwalk Grill. Those are 2 people that have 4 kids under the age of 10. 2 of them go to the Madeira Beach Fundamental School, and 2 go over in Seminole area. It is very real family life down there. We own the building just to the right of Caddy's, or just east of Caddy's. Then you have Guy that owns the building next to it, who has children and loves Madeira Beach. And then you have Jeff and his family that own the next building. We're about as real as you can get as far as making sure we don't want the big business, but that Ian would have wiped us out. We would have had no business, and then just looking at my building specifically, 3 families would have been wiped out of complete income, and we don't know what we would have done. All we can do is just thank our lucky stars and be glad that it didn't happen to us. But there was guilt, right? Because then you felt bad for all the people that were down there that it happened to them, and we dodged the bullet. But this is why we have to take care of this, to protect small business families so that they don't have to go off and do other things. So I super appreciate everyone coming out for this meeting. It's definitely been really, really educational from both sides, because I hear your concerns. And if you need to talk offline, we're always there, so feel free to stop by. I see a lot of you walking in the morning and just hanging out in the community, and we love to meet all of you, so feel free to stop by. And then just thank you to everyone for everything they did today with us. This has been incredible.
Hi, my name is Chelsea. I just had a question. When I was hearing you talk about a lot of these buildings in the past, you referred to them as non-conforming structures, and I know we have a lot of those in Madeira. I'm pretty sure I live in one. But I was wondering, just from like a planning standpoint, what the role of like variances have with this, or if they do at all, because I know that's something we've come up against as a non-conforming structure in Madeira, and I was wondering if that has any play within all of this, or I wasn't real clear, and I was hoping to hear from you about it.
Yeah, so with the non-conforming structures, our goal is always not to expand or increase the non-conforming structures. So people are allowed to rebuild within those. When it comes to variances, they have to be for specific things, specific limitations on the property and things like that. So when you get into large-scale issues like this, it wouldn't be able to be dealt with on a case-by-case variance, incident. So with the non-conforming, we do try to work with property owners because we do understand we do have small lots and we do have some unique build-outs from the past. But we typically like to stay within the footprint and not allow the non-conformity to get worse, to become more, what am I looking for? Just to
Increase that nonconformity.
Exactly, increase nonconformity, unless there's a specific reason, a funny shaped lot, or like if you're in a cul-de-sac or something like that, that increases it. So I'm not sure if you have a specific question regarding it that I'm not maybe answering here.
I was just curious. I didn't know if there's like a place for that in the development they were talking about. Like, let's say the county comes back and says, we can increase, like, instead of the .55, we're at 1, right? And Madeira says, okay, we're at 1. Is there a place then for like more of that, like, individual attention to a property to seek something greater or lesser instead of having like the roof so high, I guess, instead of having all that space? I don't know if I'm explaining that well.
I think you're asking if it can be dealt with on a case-by-case
Yeah,
basis versus doing this. Not really, it can't, because basically all the lots there don't have somebody bought a lot, you knew when you bought it, it was 40 by 100. You knew that was the best that lot was ever going to be, but then you go, oh, I really want to do more with it. It's like, well, you kind of knew when you bought the lot it had its own limitations. So to deal with a large-scale commercial situation like this, it would not be feasible to do it in that capacity. It wouldn't be an approach that we would take. I don't know if you want to kind of expand on that a little bit.
And I would say the variance process in our code, it has 6 criteria, and you must meet all 6 criteria. So it's quite difficult to get a variance, and then that has to go through the special magistrate. The special magistrate really makes that decision with a variance. With the variance process, you still can't override the land use. So the land use has that .55 cap from the county. A variance can't override that and say, okay, well, now we can go to a 1.5. We can have a bigger building. We can't allow that. We wouldn't be able to, or the special magistrate wouldn't be able to grant that.
That's a
Didn't
good
have the
point.
authority.
Yeah, the variances are more for like setbacks and maybe ISR, but they wouldn't be able to delve into the density and intensity. That's a good point, yeah. So it's more that where you really wouldn't get any relief from a variance.
Usually see variances like on a pie-shaped lot where the setbacks make it really difficult to build. So that's usually where we see variances, but it's also a lengthy process and hard to get a variance since there's 6 criteria within the code.
I mean, the other important thing to remember, like a goal with this is to be proactive to make sure that we're able to develop the land development regulations to have like things like design standards and other things. So when someone wants to build something new or redevelop a property, they know what they can and can't do down there. Because the thing is, with the variances, most of the time I've seen it usually with setback or allowing for the encroaching setback if it's something like related to like making something ADA compliant, but like we don't like want to have planning like parcel by parcel basis. We want to have a cohesive vision for like John's Pass and the surrounding areas. So when stuff comes in, it's a similar scale and height and use to what's there currently.
At the last commission meeting, one of the residents who's not here had asked the question why the Gulf Lane had to go all the way up to 133rd, not to 131st. The larger properties that are non-conforming, you have some motels down there, about 129th, 130th that are on ground floor. So what is the reason going to 133rd and not stopping at 131st where most of the non-conforming properties are?
I mean, okay. Well, we wanted to encompass like all the, like after looking at the development, as like Madeira Bay and Barefoot Beach Club are like the last larger properties there, as shown. And
But they already meet the flood requirements and everything, being elevated and everything with all the residences. So why are you having to include them?
Well, with Madeira Bay, so with Barefoot Beach Club's conforming. It has the right land use, and it was rezoned and doesn't have any issue. Madeira Bay, the land use under it is not what it should have been. Because when I researched about Madeira Bay, I found out it was done via variances in the early 2000s. So I mean, Madeira Bay does need a land use change to be brought into compliance. The benefits of having the beachside, once again, we're still keeping the restrictions on, so you can't do standalone commercial use down there because it is primarily an area of a mix of residential and temporary lodging units. And then we'd also be able to go into the LDRs and adopt things like design standards and other requirements to make sure when new stuff comes in, it's compatible with the current, because we understand it's a very sensitive area.
So Madeira Bay is on the east side. I'm saying on the west side of Gulf Boulevard, there's no reason to go to 133rd. You should stop at 131st.
The land use is still inconsistent. There's a strip of land that's rec open space, and it should not be rec open space where buildings are already built. So there is land use inconsistencies there. I wouldn't say like in the zoning, but in the land use with the county and us currently. On the west side.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I really have one more quick question. Since we have the majority on the boardwalk over here that we own the boardwalk, and right now with the current plan, we cannot rebuild. Well, the last 4 or 5 years, we've been waiting to redo the piling underneath the boardwalk. They have not been done. A big storm coming. We wiped out. Believe me, there's 35 piling that needed to be done like yesterday. They have not been done. So where we stand right now, if we don't have no boardwalk, to the rest of the city of Madeira Beach, because it's for the whole city, the village, and the boardwalk. Believe me, it's bad. There's over 35 piling that have not been done. We've been going back and forth about 5 years. They got the money. I heard they got the money, but nothing has been done. So can you, anyone, city manager, sir, can you please answer anything about?
Right, so we have repaired some pilings. I will find out which ones, because we did have a firm, a company that came out and gave us, they inspected all of them and gave us a report, and that was a result of some of the repairs that occurred almost underneath where the bell tower is. But I'll check on where we are on the others, because there are repairs that either have been completed or are in the process of being completed. But I do know, because Public Works and the vendor showed me the pilings that were repaired underneath where the bell tower is. But we'll get back to you on where the rest of them are.
Hi, guys. Hello. Oh, it works. Okay. My name's Doug Andrews. I probably know most of you in here. I probably have seen those charts more than anybody in this room based on my 4 years sitting up there. And I know I definitely spent more time with the late Dave Healy, who designed all of this stuff. Okay. Truth be told, actually, this is a pretty encouraging meeting. I'm hearing a lot more informed questions than everybody dealing with all the fear-mongering that's been going on here. In honesty, when this first came out, I didn't think this was going to be controversial at all. I looked at it and looked at the design, and when Dave explained it to me the very first time, and I sat with him again privately one time, God rest his soul, when he explained it, it's kind of a no-brainer if you think about it. There's not really, maybe, if we have to dilly-dally with where it stops, where it starts, if that's what this is really all about, this should be a 10-minute conversation. We can sit down, get together, and we can explain the reasons why it goes to a certain area. But as far as what it's doing and what it's providing for the city, again, it's a no-brainer. But we have a group of residents and non-residents that love to just stir the pot and put fear into, and every time their theories get debunked, I mean, when I hear about the evacuation routes, I kind of chuckle. That whole thing came up because our attorney friend in Treasure Island was worried about the evacuation route. Well, if you're in Treasure Island, your evacuation route is 107th. You're not coming over the bridge past Johns Pass. And everybody in Madeira Beach, you're going to 150th, so you're not even going to go through Johns Pass. So I'm a little concerned with that. But my point is, how this is designed is perfect for what we need it for. Obviously I've known Sonny forever. God forbid something happened and Officer Johnson didn't happen to be walking through Johns Pass at 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a whole different conversation we're having today, guys. Whole different conversation. So all I can tell you, and Mr. Edwards brought up a report. When I talk about the fear-mongering, and I'm not saying Tom's fear-mongering. I like Tom a lot. I think he's a very well-educated guy. But to bring up that report, so that report was commissioned by one of our residents, paid a guy who is a very well-respected planner, okay? But he's never been to Madeira Beach. How many people in this room have talked to Mr. Gauthier? Anybody? Me. I'm the only one, right? Because when that was presented to me on the board, I picked up the phone and I called the guy to find out what he did. He was commissioned by a resident, and guess what? If that report, and all that report was to criticize that plan. He didn't come to Madeira Beach to look at it and to see what he could do differently. He got $3,000 to criticize that plan. Let me tell you something. If he didn't criticize that plan, if he would have given a report that was favorable about the plan that he saw, do you think we ever would have saw it? Of course we wouldn't have. Of course we wouldn't have. Stop believing what you're reading online, because it has really divided this city. This is a good plan. It's a good idea. If it needs to be tweaked, these guys are professionals. They know what they're doing. Let them figure out what they're doing. Let them figure out the plan that needs to be put in place, okay? But let's not dilly-dally over this, and then we're faced with what we could have been a disaster a couple of short months ago. So thanks for your time, guys. It's my birthday. I got to get out of here. Bye.
Hello. Any other questions? Come right back here.
Thanks, Robin. Hi, good morning. My name is Jim Everett. Our family owns the Everett Financial Group, which is an insurance agency here in Madeira Beach. And I just want to echo what this gentleman said earlier. So Sonny's business came this close to not being able to be resuscitated. I mean, if that building had burned another 15 minutes, I think it would have all had to been torn down. And if you look at the option that she would have had for reconstruction, same thing with Jimmy's business. I mean, he couldn't, we insure a lot of the businesses in Johns Pass. Sorry, how's that, Bill? Thank you. We insure, among others, his, but we insure businesses in Johns Pass. And the issue is, if Jimmy had to rebuild Delosas to that, he wouldn't rebuild Delosas because it wouldn't be economically viable for him to rebuild Delosas. And most of these businesses would have been in the same boat. Sonny wouldn't have come back with the alligator attraction in that building if it had to be in this footprint because it's not big enough. She couldn't run her business in there. She couldn't have enough exhibits and enough animals in there to drive enough traffic to make enough money to pay the rent. And oh, by the way, it's a new building now. What do you think is going to happen to the rent? It's not going to go down. It's going to go up. So is the insurance, as is everybody's these days. So I apologize for that. But that's the problem. It's a matter of economics. And if you take all that tax revenue, let's talk about money for a minute. You take all that tax revenue out of the city right now, do you think the city would be able to maintain their millage rate year over year for you as property owners? No, they would not. That money's got to come from somewhere. City services that are provided aren't going to go away. So if you lose all that tax base down there, because Walt, their place is already tiny. I mean, if Sue had to go back in there, she couldn't. she couldn't put enough seats in there to make enough money. She'd have to turn tables every 15 seconds to make any money if she had to rebuild to that footprint. So it's a matter of economics. I mean, everybody goes, oh, we would just rebuild to this. No, you wouldn't. They wouldn't rebuild if they were that restricted. It wouldn't happen. Johns Pass would go away as we know it today. The businesses that are there now couldn't run a viable business. It's not enough room. So as Marcus said, 0.55. Cut somebody's floor space in half and ask them if they can run a business. No way. They couldn't do it. So that's one thing to keep in mind. We all like low property taxes, right? And the beach is pretty good for property taxes. Go move to St. Pete and look at the property tax millage rate over there. So we have incredibly low millage rates for where we live. So if you want to maintain that, you can't crush the largest commercial business area in the city, which is what would happen. There's a hurricane spinning up right now. I hope to God it doesn't flood us, but the current track does not look good.
And on the hurricane note, just a reminder that until September the 8th, the Florida legislature approved a few months ago the sales tax holiday, so you can go out and purchase various supplies for preparedness. There's a list in the back table in case you're wondering. You can buy a generator up to $3,000 and not pay sales tax on it. So save $210 if you want to go out and buy a $3,000 generator. But hopefully we won't have to use it, but includes like batteries and pet supplies, et cetera. So smoke alarms, fire extinguishers, et cetera. So again, that goes all the way until September the 8th. So thank you for the commercial. Any other questions or comments way in the back, please?
I don't need that. No, we need the recording.
Sorry.
From Jenny, basically Jenny told us the main reason for us to approve this was to rebuild what we had. We passed it. I don't think I'm going to speak for the commissions because we have two commissioners here and the mayor. I'm sure, speaking for them, they would not turn this down either. Of course we want to rebuild what we have. Why wouldn't we? The numbers that the county has and what we have are two different things. After our meeting, Jenny said point blank to us, we have to get the numbers together, come back through, and run it so everything is copacetic with the county because the county is the boss. So all of this other stuff isn't true, if you understand what I'm saying. People are putting a lot of things out there that have no meaning. You know, we're trying to preserve what we have. And the planning board approved this. Thank you.
Again, thank you all very, very much for coming out. I mean, we're here for questions. If you want to ask them in a group, we'll stick around for a little bit longer or as long as we need to. Oh, a couple back here in the corner.
Hi, my name's Larry, a 3.5-decade resident. I just wanted to get some personal clarification on the floor area ratio. If you could show slide 16, well, you got it up. Anyways, if I'm understanding this correctly, a 2.0 FAR would be a two-story building at the full footprint of the lot, width and length?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, that clarifies that. The second thing, if in the commercial zone, if we did have a post-disaster rebuilding, you mentioned that the building would have to be flood-proofed. Is that meaning that the first floor would have to be about 4 foot above the ground, like where Lori Soaps is in the two-story section? They rebuilt a section after a fire 20 years ago, and they brought the floor up about 4 feet. Is that what you're talking about if for new construction, if there was a major catastrophe?
As I'm not quite sure why they may have made that decision, maybe just to get it up. You would not be required to elevate your property in any capacity. You would be able to flood-proof what you have at grade up to the design flood elevation, and then you would be able to build your second story or whatever above that. So if you have an at-grade structure that is within the base flood elevation or design flood elevation height, that would have to be flood-proofed. So let's say you're already at an elevation of 4, then whatever above that would have to be flood-proofed up to the design flood elevation of 14 or 15 elevation, and then everything above that would just be normal construction techniques and everything like that. Does that make sense?
In layman's terms, what do you mean by flood-proofed?
So there's a certain, so when your engineer goes to design it, they will design it with certified flood-proofed products, such as the drywall would be a certified flood-proof type of drywall. The door would be, all those components would be certified by the Florida product approval list or whatever as flood-proofed. And then prior to you getting a CO, your engineer would say, I've inspected the property, they've built it, it is flood-proofed, here's my signed and sealed certification to the city stating that I have flood-proofed it. So there's design options out there for it. There's no one thing you have to be locked into. There's a couple of different ways you can get there.
Thank you very much. You've clarified everything for me.
Anything to add to that? Okay.
Again, thank you all so very much for coming out on a Saturday morning. Please take some fruit or little sandwiches to go.
And if you
We
guys
will
get-
have more meetings going forward.
Yeah, and if you guys get any emails that get you riled up, let us know. Don't waste a moment of your time getting upset about stuff if we can answer your questions, please.